If you think working from home automatically gives you freedom without cost, pause for a moment. Because the most expensive career decisions are rarely the ones that feel painful at the beginning. They are the ones that feel comfortable. Remote work feels comfortable. It feels modern, efficient, intelligent, progressive. It feels like winning the future. No commute, no office politics, no rigid schedules, no wasted hours in traffic, no fluorescent lights, no forced small talk. You control your time, you control your space, you control your energy, and for many professionals, this shift genuinely improved quality of life. But careers are not built only on comfort. They are built on leverage. And leverage is rarely visible from your home office. There is a silent shift that happens when you go fully remote. You stop being physically present in the system that decides power. And power, whether we admit it or not, still concentrates around proximity. The uncomfortable truth is this. Remote work does not eliminate office politics. It relocates them, and if you are not in the rooms where influence forms, you are outside the gravity field of advancement. This is not about laziness. This is not about productivity. Many remote workers are more productive than their in-office peers. The issue is not output. The issue is exposure. In large organizations, output gets you stability. Exposure gets you mobility. Those are not the same thing. Stability keeps you employed. Mobility moves you upward. When companies transitioned to remote work at scale, especially during global disruption, the narrative was simple: results matter more than location. In theory, that sounds fair. But organizations are not purely rational systems. They are social systems, and social systems reward familiarity. Humans evolved in small tribes. We trusted those we saw regularly. We felt safer with those whose body language we could read. We promoted those who felt close. Zoom does not override that wiring. It simply masks it. Consider how memory works. Your brain does not store everyone equally. It stores vivid interactions more strongly. In-person conversations activate more sensory input. Tone, gesture, spatial presence, micro-expressions. Video calls compress all of that into pixels. When promotion discussions happen months later, your brain retrieves the strongest memories first. Not necessarily the best performers. The most vivid presences. This is not malicious. It is cognitive efficiency, but it creates asymmetry. Two professionals can deliver equal value. One becomes mentally larger in leadership's memory. The other becomes abstract. Abstract people are easier to overlook. Remote work reduces spontaneous interaction. Spontaneity builds emotional bonding. In offices, relationships form in moments that were never scheduled. A shared frustration after a meeting. A joke in the elevator. A side comment during a presentation setup. Those micro moments create familiarity. Familiarity creates trust. Trust accelerates promotion. Remote workers must schedule every interaction. Scheduled interaction lacks friction. It lacks texture. It lacks unpredictability. And unpredictability is where strong bonds often form. There is also the illusion of fairness. Remote environments feel equal. Everyone has the same screen. Everyone gets the same square. But equality of interface does not equal equality of influence. In meetings, subtle dynamics shape perception. Who speaks first? Who interrupts confidently? Who maintains eye contact? Who commands silence through presence? On video, authority flattens. Dominance cues weaken. Emotional impact decreases. A confident in-person speaker feels more persuasive than the same words delivered through compressed audio. Leadership often involves persuasion. Persuasion is embodied. Embodiment loses strength through distance. Now imagine long-term compounding. Year 1, no visible difference. Year 2, minor difference in project visibility. Year 3, one colleague gets invited into a strategic initiative. Year 5, one colleague is now seen as leadership material. The other remains strong operational talent. Both are competent, but one has narrative momentum. Narrative momentum matters. Careers are stories told about you when you are not present. In-office professionals are characters leadership sees in action. Remote professionals are characters leadership hears about in summaries. Summaries compress nuance. Nuance shapes confidence. Another hidden dimension is perceived commitment. When someone shows up physically, there is an implicit signal. They invested time to be here. They are present in the arena. Remote work removes that signal. Even if you are equally committed, the symbolic gesture disappears. Symbols matter in hierarchical systems. Executives often unconsciously equate physical presence with dedication. This belief may be outdated. But outdated beliefs still influence decisions. Now layer in network effects. The workplace is not just a structure of tasks. It is a web of alliances. Who defends you during budget reviews? Who nominates you for high-visibility projects? Who thinks of you when a role opens unexpectedly? Networks grow through repeated interaction. Repeated interaction is easier in shared space. When you pass someone daily, weak ties strengthen. Weak ties are powerful. Research consistently shows weak professional connections often create the most opportunity. Remote environments reduce weak tie frequency. You interact mostly with direct teammates. Your network narrows. Narrow networks limit optionality. Optionality determines negotiation power. Negotiation power determines income trajectory. Small network constraints become large financial consequences over a decade. There is also the problem of informal learning. In offices, junior professionals observe unfiltered behavior. They witness conflict. They observe how senior leaders handle disagreement. They absorb political nuance without realizing it. Remote calls are sanitized. Conflict is minimized. Conversations are agenda-driven. Learning becomes structured. Leadership development becomes slower. Because leadership is learned through chaos as much as curriculum. Then comes identity. Long-term remote work can psychologically detach you from organizational identity. You may begin to see your job as a contract. A service exchanged for compensation. But internal advancement often favors those who feel embedded. Embedded individuals fight for the organization. They defend it emotionally. They internalize its success. Leaders look for that signal. If you appear external, even subtly, you may be categorized as replaceable. Replaceability suppresses promotion. Then there is crisis behavior. During uncertainty, organizations retreat toward familiarity. Executives promote those they trust most. Trust is often built through accumulated shared experience. In-person shared stress builds stronger bonds than virtual shared stress. If leadership has not experienced you in high-pressure physical environments, your leadership credibility may feel untested. Untested feels risky. Risk aversion reduces upward movement. Now consider long-term wealth compounding. Promotions do not just increase salary. They increase equity access. They increase bonus percentages. They increase exposure to strategic knowledge. Strategic knowledge allows career pivots. Career pivots increase lifetime earnings. If remote work slows early promotion velocity, the gap magnifies. A 2-year delay at mid-level can translate into hundreds of thousands in lifetime earnings difference. Because compounding rewards acceleration. Acceleration favors visibility. Now step back and look at cultural inertia. Many organizations built their power structures before remote work existed at scale. Their leadership pipelines were forged in physical proximity. Their evaluation instincts were trained through in-person observation. You cannot rewrite decades of organizational psychology overnight. Hybrid policies exist, but cultural memory remains physical. Operating remotely inside a historically physical culture creates friction. You are navigating a map designed for a different terrain. That mismatch produces subtle penalties. Another layer is signaling ambition. In some executive circles, choosing remote work full-time may unconsciously signal lifestyle prioritization over ambition. That perception may be unfair. But perceptions shape opportunity. Ambition signals are amplified through proximity. In-person professionals often get spontaneous access to senior leaders. A hallway conversation can turn into mentorship. Mentorship evolves into sponsorship. Sponsorship accelerates leadership trajectory. Sponsorship rarely begins through formal remote channels. It often begins through repeated visibility. There is also the effect of conversational spillover. In offices, ideas spill into adjacent conversations. You overhear strategic direction shifts. You detect tone changes in leadership sentiment. You adapt before official announcements. Remote workers often learn about change at the same time as everyone else. Early awareness creates strategic advantage. Strategic advantage increases promotion probability. Now examine emotional resonance. Humans connect more deeply in shared physical space. Mirror neurons activate differently. Empathy feels stronger. Charisma translates more effectively. Charisma is not superficial. It influences trust, influence, and persuasive capacity. Leaders are often chosen not only for intelligence but for felt presence. Presence is harder to transmit through a screen. Over time, this influences leadership readiness perception. Let's introduce another concept: reputational velocity. Reputation spreads through informal storytelling. He handled that situation brilliantly. She stayed calm under pressure. He navigated that client crisis exceptionally well. In physical offices, these stories spread organically. In remote settings, storytelling is limited to formal summaries. Formal summaries lack emotional intensity. Lower emotional intensity reduces memorability. Lower memorability reduces reputational velocity. Slow reputation growth slows promotion speed. Now consider hybrid imbalance. If some team members are in office and others remote, those physically present often dominate conversational flow. They read body language. They respond faster. They capture subtle cues. Remote participants experience slight delay. Small delays accumulate. Influence gradually centralizes around physical clusters. Remote individuals become secondary voices. Secondary voices rarely lead. Leadership visibility shrinks. Then comes fatigue bias. After long days, decision makers rely on heuristics. Who feels safe? Who feels familiar? Who feels reliable? Familiarity is strengthened by physical presence. Thus, during promotion discussions, in-office professionals may unconsciously benefit from emotional shortcuts. Again, not malicious. Structural. Now let's discuss long-term optionality outside the organization. In-office exposure increases external visibility. Vendors, partners, visiting executives, board members see you. Your name circulates beyond your department. Remote professionals are less exposed to external stakeholders. External visibility increases exit options. Exit options increase negotiation leverage internally. Reduced exposure reduces leverage. Reduced leverage reduces compensation growth. Another hidden dimension is conflict tolerance. Remote work can shield you from high-friction conversations. But leadership requires friction tolerance. If your career path avoids intense in-person conflict, your perceived executive readiness may weaken. Senior roles demand comfort with tension in physical rooms. Boards often evaluate how leaders command space. Space is literal. Commanding digital squares is not the same as commanding physical rooms. This influences executive trajectory. Now examine cultural signaling. Offices create rituals, shared lunches, town halls, celebrations, ceremonies. Rituals reinforce belonging. Belonging influences loyalty. Loyalty influences trust. Remote work dilutes ritual participation. Reduced ritual exposure weakens cultural embedding. Weaker embedding reduces advocacy during strategic reshuffles. Now consider career ceilings. Technical excellence can carry you far remotely. But executive roles demand cross-functional alliance. Alliance building accelerates in physical proximity. Remote professionals may hit a ceiling where technical skill is acknowledged but strategic integration feels incomplete. That ceiling is subtle. It is rarely stated explicitly. But it exists in many traditional structures. There is also a generational dimension. Younger professionals entering fully remote environments may miss foundational social learning experiences. Negotiation posture, room reading, executive etiquette. These are often absorbed through observation. Structured video calls limit exposure. Skill gaps appear later when leadership roles demand nuance. Now consider the long-term psychological shift. When you work remotely, you may unconsciously prioritize autonomy over influence. Autonomy feels empowering. Influence requires friction. If comfort becomes your default metric, you may avoid strategic exposure opportunities. Over time, comfort compounds into plateau. Influence compounds into acceleration. Remote work increases comfort. Office work increases exposure. Acceleration often favors exposure. But here is the crucial shift. Remote work is not inherently disadvantageous. It becomes disadvantageous when approached passively. Passive remote workers lose visibility. Strategic remote workers manufacture visibility. They schedule relationship building deliberately. They communicate outcomes with precision. They seek sponsors intentionally. They travel periodically for strategic presence. They over-index on clarity. They amplify achievements. They treat exposure as part of performance. Because in modern organizations, it is. The invisible penalty is only invisible to those who assume neutrality. The environment is not neutral. It rewards those who adapt to its hidden incentives. If you choose remote work for lifestyle, acknowledge the trade-off. If you choose it for productivity, design around perception gaps. If you choose it for freedom, accept that freedom requires strategic compensation. The game has changed, but the rules of power have not disappeared. They have shifted, and those who understand the shift can navigate it deliberately. Those who ignore it may feel slow stagnation without understanding why. Remote work does not ruin careers, but it changes the equation between visibility, trust, and advancement. In a world still governed by human psychology, being seen remains a form of capital. And capital, whether social or financial, compounds. If you remove yourself from visibility without replacing it strategically, the compounding works against you. If you design your remote career with exposure in mind, the compounding can still work for you. The invisible career penalty is not destiny. It is a structural bias. Structural biases can be anticipated. They can be countered, but only if they are acknowledged. Freedom without strategy is vulnerability. Freedom with strategy is leverage. The question is not whether remote work is good or bad. The question is whether you understand the hidden costs of the environment you chose. Because in modern organizations, power rarely goes to the most skilled alone. It goes to the most visible, the most trusted, and the most embedded. And visibility, even in the digital age, still favors those who are seen.